as Nigeria, where should we align into? Should we align east? Because I mean, over the last decade or so, most of our trade has been eastward.
What do we need to get to the Nigeria where we have saying?
Where are we going? Good question. Where are we going?
Where are we going?
With what? That's what he asked as well. Something else. With what? Be specific. Where are we going with what? Is it with export?
Even with the FPI conversations, what exactly is the plan? We're talking about it, I think,
the president wants a $1 trillion economy. The president wants a stable exchange rate. You're asking me how we're going, and I'm telling you what he said. He wants a $1 trillion economy. He wants a stable exchange rate. He wants a growing middle class. Wait now, he wants export growth. You're asking me where are we going? And I'm telling you, at least from a policy point of view, that is where the government is going.
So what you've called a $1 trillion economy is like having my glass filled. Now, the question is, what am I filling this glass with? Because a $1 trillion economy can come from crude oil. A $1 trillion economy can come from exporting jobs. A $1 trillion economy can come from manufacturing. Let me rephrase my question. What exactly is that $1 trillion made of? Let me rephrase my question
again. Hello everyone, this is Drinks and Mics brought to you by Nairametrics. My name is Dre, and of course we do this every week. If you're just watching for the first time, you better go watch the previous episodes because I've always got a lot to discuss here. This is purely a market show. We discuss the economy, capital markets, locally, globally as well. We give you perspectives that you probably may not have heard of before. Anyway, I have here with me my fellow drinkers. To my right, looking for some ice cubes, is Mr. Tunji.
I don't know why I'm disturbing everybody. Sorry, guys.
And of course, to my left, which will be your right of the screen, of course, is my man, Adam.
The one and only. Man, the myth and the legend.
Suspension.
Whippersnappers.
All right, of course, I have with us our favorite guest.
Hey.
Guest of the year. He's not even a guest anymore. No. Samson is a feature now. Because, I mean, you guys want Samson all the time. But Samson's a very busy guy. So we're going to be having him here at least once a month.
Should we take a vote to see whether we can have him every week?
I can't.
So by the way,
I can do once a month. I can do once a month.
By the way, the vote for the live show was good. It was overwhelmingly positive. People were voting for the live show. So we would let you know how that worked. Because I mean, it's a live stream show or maybe in person show. So we'll have to do a bit of work around that. But yeah, stay tuned.
By the way, Tunji and I had a bet, and I told Tunji that we're gonna hit 20,000 views this episode. He says 30. So let's see who's going to win this bet.
Let's go. So you want to share it with everybody that you know, because I see it's very popular amongst market people. Yeah. So if you're also in the diaspora and you know people who just want to know what's going on with Nigeria's economy, you want to share with them also.
All right. We always welcome feedback on the show. So if there's anything you want to share with us, let us know. I mean, especially Tunji. Give Tunji all the feedback. We read all the comments, by the way.
Yeah, we read all the comments.
It's always fun.
And it's always fun. It's always fun. All love.
All right. Dive straight into today's topics. There's a whole lot to discuss today. What a week has been, both globally and, of course, locally. I mean, it's an intertwined world now where what happens in far away Kazakhstan affects some of us here in Ibadan. You know what I mean? So we start straight with Trump. I mean, not our fault. I mean, it's been 43 crazy days so far globally. And Trump made do with his promise to start the trade war. And he, of course, reimposed the tariff that he suspended against Canada and Mexico, earlier in the week, 25% tariff each respectively for Canada and Mexico. And, of course, also went on to increase China's tariffs by, I think, 10%. We all expected reciprocal.
Was that an incremental 10%?
Yeah, incremental. Because there were existing tariffs already. And of course, we got reciprocal tariffs from the three countries as well. A very interesting speech from Canadian president or is it Prime Minister, they call him, or whatever. Trump called him a governor. They called him a governor, very crazy. And of course, we heard from Warren Buffett as well. And he kind of mentioned something that took a lot of people by surprise. He said tariffs were an act of war. At some point, I was wondering whether there was some AI kind of talk, but I think he did say it, tariff as an act of war. So we're going to discuss that quickly. Guys, maybe let's start with that. I mean, Nostradamus always talked about World War III, but a lot of people thought World War III is probably maybe guns and all that. Is this maybe what he meant by World War III?
I don't know.
Tariff wars?
For me, the tariff has always been, or I started to see it as a trade deficit tool. You know, we talked about this in the last episode. U.S. trade deficit is through the roof, highest it's ever been, $1.24 trillion or so. It just looks like, from the outside looking in, that perhaps Trump is worried about the trade deficit. So a way to reduce trade deficits, keep dollar cheaper, is what it seems like to me. So if you cut or slow down imports coming in, stop Americans from buying foreign products, and then make your products cheaper, bring manufacturing also in-house for the US, make your dollar cheaper, so make your exports more affordable,
competitive.
Competitive, and then you get a shrink in the deficit. So for me, it's what it seems like. And are you asking me whether I'm supportive of it, or is it a war? I don't know whether it's.
I mean, so is it a war? Is it a different kind of war? Because I
don't think. Let's not go too far.
It is a war. It's called trade war.
It is a war.
I thought you meant war in terms of war. But yes,
it's a war. It doesn't have to be like war that we're killing each other and all that. I kind of think like.
Well, the thing is, I mean, are you asking me if I'm supportive of it or against it? Is that what it is?
No,
like a war. But for me, it's. I understand.
So you don't think it's a war?
I don't think.
You think it's a negotiation?
It could be a negotiation. So, but I understand where Trump is coming from in terms of, listen, this thing is a problem.
Finally, because it's like everybody has been getting.
It's like everybody was pushing against.
No. I'm just wondering.
The whole world has been trying to deliberately not get what Trump was trying to.
Yeah,
what is he trying to do, by the way?
So he's coming and seen that the U.S. economy is going to, I'm trying not to use the right word for that. And if they continue the trajectory they are, inflation will continue to rise. Deficit will continue to increase. They won't be able to do much domestically.
Didn't we just discuss here the last time? I don't know where something, it was you that brought it up, that America, they have a reserve currency. And so for that reason, they would always have a deficit.
I think I have a series.
No, it's not even about the deficit. So there are two ways to look at it. So he's concerned really about the trade weighted dollar. So basically, in the context of, if you can, how will I put it? If you can look at other factors to measure the dollar, then it will be better for the US economy. So I don't think he's okay. I'm not in his head. So, but from what I hear, I'm not really sure if the deficit per se is his problem. It's more how it affects every other thing. So if they can remove...
The deficit is the problem, because he's trying to make America more competitive. Yeah. So for him, one of the best ways to do is to shrink the trade deficit by making exports cheaper.
But his own argument to the trade, to the tariffs is side by side what he's saying with cutting taxes. So he's saying he's trying to reduce taxes in the US for Americans, and he's trying to pay for the shortfall in taxes with tariffs.
By increasing taxes on US consumer, because that is what it is.
Which eventually goes there, right?
Exactly.
And a few supermarket chains, the CEOs were speaking this week and talking about the varied times to which they believe that the tariffs will hit the shelves. Because obviously, if you continue to import goods from Mexico, because Mexico really supplies a lot of their fresh foods, their dairy products, so it's, if you put those tariffs, and Mexico has reciprocated.
So I read a paper from, I think it was the Cato Institute, that said that a car in the US, a finished car, the parts of the car crosses the US, Mexico,
and Canada as well,
by about 8 to a dozen times before it finally gets assembled. Right.
Yeah.
So within that context, I don't know
what is going to happen.
Tariff means for that multiple period of parts and different parts of the car crossing the border. But I always like to take a step back with these conversations, right? Which is, is a trade deficit really bad for the US?
No.
And within the because like if Nigeria runs a persistent trade deficit, it's a problem, right? Because you need to pay for that deficit in a currency that you have no control over. For the US, it's quite the opposite. Its import and its export is denominated in the same currency, and the US is a reserve currency. And I said earlier in my prior podcast, in my prior podcast, that we need to understand what a trade deficit really means, right? So if you look at national identity equations, your savings minus your investment is equal to your trade balance, right? So the reason why the US runs a persistent trade deficit is very simple. The investment intensity in the US is extremely high, right? Obviously, AI, infrastructure, large fiscal deficits, right? It's extremely high. And the savings rate in the US, because it's a hyper-consumptive economy and very credit-led, is actually quite low. So when you have that sort of mismatch, you sort of need to borrow output from the rest of the world. The other side of your balance of payment account after your trade deficits, right? Your current account deficit is what you call your capital account. The US has persistently run large capital account surpluses. What does that mean? It means that the US borrows capital from the rest of the world in order to fund these investments.
Which is basically their biggest export.
So by definition, if you want to significantly reduce your trade deficit or flip your deficit into a surplus, you will then have to run a capital account deficit, which has implications for the dollar, how you fund your deficits and how you fund your investments. We need to think about this from a holistic perspective. So that's why I have reservations that the US, as it is currently constituted, unless you really want to change the structural monetary system of the world, de facto will run trade deficits.
Yeah.
And that is why I don't agree that this is a trade deficit
but I
discussion.
agree that
What
the
exactly what is Trump's motive? That's what I keep asking.
for me, I agree
Is it a
that-
trade deficit discussion? Apologies for butting in. Is it a trade deficit discussion, or this is Donald Trump essentially trying to attract manufacturing jobs or increase manufacturing capacity in the US, trying to move manufacturing away from China and then into the US? That kind of looks like his motive to me.
But you do that because, like,
That's what it sounds like.
That is what he's
That is what he's saying. The
Because
bulk of high labor intensive manufacturing cannot be competitive in the US because of the unit labor cost relative to its trade partners, right? So trying to get the US to start making plastic toys, for example, is just not going to work, right? So that's one point, right? The second point is, like I said earlier, who pays for a tariff, right? It's ultimately the US consumer, especially within the context of Canada, right? That basically, think about, what do they export to the US? It's steel, it's aluminum, and it's power and energy, right? These are not products that you can easily switch out of, right? So basically, you then have the Canadians who have to deal with this tariff in multiple forms. Obviously, they would retaliate. The Canadian currency will probably have to weaken to take some impact of that tariff, which means that relative to the dollar, it will have to strengthen. So that's an input cost pressure for US manufacturers. And then the customer would have to pay the difference, right? So you then have what I think is higher product inflation, which should, with a lag, obviously feed into CPI. So I really, really struggle. And I think that's probably what the issue that I have is I am not sure the Trump administration and the people around him have really articulated what their end game is.
No, they have not.
Right.
They have not. So they've not. I think they have said a few things, right? They've said a few things, and it's left the entire market guessing. And you can see the response of the market everywhere. Everybody didn't really like, because it just seemed like we thought these tariffs were not going to happen, and now you've brought them back. But we don't really know why you're doing it.
But isn't there that long piece from that? There's one of this Trump's guy that was an ex hedge fund guy that wrote a long piece on
Zoltan.
Yeah. And after that, there's someone that wrote a piece based on his piece, making America more competitive by.
But you know,
But
that's a piece. That's a
But
piece.
this is where I
That's
get-
not a policy
Sorry.
document.
This is where I get
But
confused,
it
guys.
sounds like the policies are being read from that
No,
piece.
hold on. Okay, let me just throw this back at you.
Okay.
So Trump says the reason why I'm imposing tariff on China is because of fentanyl. The reason why I'm imposing tariff on Mexico is because of immigration. Same thing with Canada. So this has got nothing to do with reciprocal tariff. And then he now comes and says, well, after dealing with Mexico, Canada, and China, I'm going to now go global. And my global view essentially is reciprocal tariffs. If you tariff me, I tariff you. So it's a bit confusing. So what exactly is he looking for? So is it an immigration problem that he's trying to deal with using tariff? Or is it that the Canadians...
No.
But that has been the rhetoric, except I'm
So
missing something here.
I say, I've spent an unhealthy amount of time trying to understand Trump as a person. His view around the disadvantages of the US from the perspective of
Global
the balance of trade is something that has been quite consistent prior to him even becoming president the first time around. So he genuinely believes, right, that the rest of the world
is gaming
is gaming the US. I think that there is a fundamental lack of understanding, or maybe a lack of acknowledgement that actually this monetary and global trade system was largely designed and has created a lot of wealth, right? For US elites, you could argue. Maybe the Rust Belt have suffered, but it's not. The Rust Belt has largely suffered out of, I think, maybe the greed of US elites, right? Because I think the large deindustrialization that the US probably suffered came off the back of China's entry into the World Trade Organization, and not necessarily from a function of the global monetary world order, because people basically wanted cheap electronics and cheap products, and they outsource a lot of the productive capacity to the Chinese, with the thought, of course, that they will keep on to the high-end manufacturing end of the spectrum, while the Chinese did the really basic stuff. But when you think about global competitiveness and you look at the number of engineers that China throws out
compared to
relative to the US, it was only a matter of time that these so-called copiers and dumb people, right, quote unquote,
Probably do better than you.
will probably do better than you. And in a large number of industries, right, take autos for example, I think the Chinese are now very close to the global competitive frontiers.
No, I think they even surpassed. I think they surpassed as well. EV vehicles.
EVs, I think EVs, because they control the value chain, and they're probably ahead. But they are like in chips, for example, they are still probably behind. But obviously with DeepSeek, we were quite shocked as to what they were able to achieve. But my point again is, there, in my mind, like, there is a fundamental misunderstanding. But I think if we take a step back as well, there are global consequences to this, right? Because what does a trade deficit and what does tariffs do? Tariffs potentially increase pricing. It stalls business decision making, right? Because a lot of multinationals, especially with the conversation around EU tariffs, and we can come to the EU because there was huge seismic event in Germany right now, right? Because the German is trying to push through the elimination of the debt brake. What is the debt brake? Post the global financial crisis, the German parliament constitutionally passed a law that prevented them from running less than 35% of 1%, so 35 basis points in annual fiscal deficits. So
they want to exceed
Germany has been on a straight jacket from a fiscal perspective. Obviously, with the destruction of the European security umbrella by Trump, as a consequence of what is happening with Ukraine and Russia, because Europe has been largely bypassed in these conversations, Germany have decided that Europe needs to be militarily independent. We are talking about...
Just a big problem.
We are talking about... So the current numbers that I saw before I came in here was about $800 billion to be spent.
Am I the
on,
only one that felt shivers when he said that military independent?
Yeah,
But that's what they said.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Germans are
You needed
There's
to
an
you needed
opportunity
to
to come
listen
out
to
now.
the speech from the guy who just won the German election. It was a, I think, and it's become a realization for the Europeans, because what General Eisenhower did post World War II by effectively creating the North Atlantic Treaty was that it embedded US military architecture into Europe, and basically turned Europe into a vassal state. Of the US, which largely benefited the US. And some would argue...
In a way, it benefited Europe as well.
Well,
It helped them reconstruct faster.
I agree with
And
that.
they didn't need to spend much money on military security infrastructure.
But the point I was trying to make
Big Brother was here.
Yeah, but this is now we are now in a new world where Germany, the fiscal hawks of Europe, are now loosening the purse string. So if you see, the German bunds were up 25 basis points. I think that is probably the biggest sell-off we've seen in the bund since the reunification of the Berlin Wall.
Wow.
Yes.
That's what we experienced today.
So it's like Germans are like, yes.
To be honest, I felt like the Germans needed to spend fiscally anyway. They were too fiscal. And then the second part is they want to lobby for the EU to reduce fiscal rules that allow the rest of the European Union
to also spend.
And a
lot of the spending is going to go into research anyway.
Yeah. So when you see
build-ups.
and that's why the euro dollar is strengthening, right? If you look today, while the US markets are selling off, the European market, the DAX, the stocks are rallying. And I think these are big structural themes that in the long run, the US is going to look at decision-making that has happened in the last 43 days and point to this period as the point where they lost a grip to the rest of the world.
Where does this next 5 to 10 years? How do you think this plays
5 to 10 years? How does it play out this year?
Now. So this is
hold on. China has said they're going to fight till the end.
Yeah.
Canada is not,
and they can't do it.
Europe is reinvigorated. So where does this end? Somebody has got to.
So this is the thing.
This is not Ukraine.
So this is the thing I was saying. So I unfortunately I've started. I don't know why I got to that side of YouTube. So I listened to a lot of these conspiracy theorists on YouTube, and there's this guy speaking about the fact that America, as a global leader, its tenure has come to an end. Trump or no Trump, right? That the forces in the world that are rising up in different areas for different political reasons, different political reasons, have started rising. So there's Germany, which is significant in its own right. There's China, which is significant in its own right. Russia might look a sleeping giant, but it's still significant. You can't, run them over in any way. But then there's the US trying to still claim dominance in the center of everything. But these people were the ones that laid credence to the US's strength at some point. Now that has gone. So the US doesn't have that. Now what I feel is that Trump already knows this. And he can see it because, he's the president right now and they have a lot of intelligence. A lot of what he's doing right now is to try and see how much of what he can salvage. So a bit of what he said with the bringing cryptocurrencies into the US reserves. Now, this is significant. A lot of people do not realize how he's flipping the script of how the US economy is being run. So first of all, when he's saying he wants to bring...
That's the next topic, by the way. Are you segmenting into it already?
I think so. Okay. So when he's saying we're bringing cryptocurrencies into the US Federal Reserves, right? What everybody interpreted that as is the US government is going to take taxpayers' money and buy crypto and then use it as reserves. What people do not realize is that the US has seized a significant amount of crypto, which if you flip into your own assets becomes a significant, so part of the crypto assets.
You can't unilaterally do that. You will need a court judgment.
So I think those
assets are held with the DOJ.
Yeah.
Because I've heard a few people say two things, which I've had an issue with. Number one, because I think this is around the topic of creating the sovereign wealth fund. For
Yeah,
the US,
the
right?
sovereign wealth fund. Yeah,
And the question is how,
Which is just wild, by the way.
I mean,
Yeah, it's wild, right?
typically you don't find trade deficit country running sovereign wealth funds. Sovereign wealth funds is where you generate excess savings and
And then
you
you keep it, yeah.
to recycle it. So that's why Norway has one, Saudi has one, Chinese
South
has
Africa
one,
and all of that.
right? So
And Nigeria, by the way.
I mean, we
Yeah,
have periodic
we have.
periods of trade surplus. We are currently in one now, so
Yeah,
which is
yeah.
nice.
I mean, we have now.
So the point is, so they said they were going to create this sovereign wealth fund. And it's like, okay, how is it going to be funded?
it was in that piece also.
One possible
Yes,
way
it was.
was that they were going to revalue the gold reserves, right? Which
That they have.
which is about $1 trillion. Which is
it's
about
900 and something billion, right? It's
trillion.
currently carried at like very low
yeah,
cost.
it's just about $1 trillion.
And then maybe use that as leverage to get liquidity to then fund the front realm. So that's one that they've spoken about. And then the sequestering of these DOJ assets, right?
So to put context, you continue with this, but I just wanted to say how significant this crypto assets the US has seized is. Just Bitcoin alone, they hold about 207,000, which roughly comes to about $11 billion, which is seized in crypto. So
That's insignificant.
I was going to say that's a significant.
I'm
But
saying
also something that we're missing. Sorry, is
But the question is,
strategic reserves is what he was used, not just reserves.
Yeah,
Strategic reserves. I mean, the US have used medical equipment as strategic reserves before. They've used
oil barrels.
oil barrels. So I don't think it's as powerful.
And it
as
wasn't only
the US.
Bitcoin
This
he
is-
mentioned, though. He mentioned
Yeah.
No. So
And
I'm
it's
sa-
not it's not like a reserve, like a gold reserve. I mean, at first I missed the word strategic as well. And I have to go back to say what is strategic reserves and what did they use it for. So it's not as, and it's $17 billion altogether, right? So
I'm a skeptic. Unfortunately, I think Trump has surrounded himself with a lot of VC type people that are all massively long to the hilt
Yeah,
of crypto
100%.
assets and basically are looking for put options. Right. That's my honest opinion.
So basically using him to fund their own long-term
Positions.
goals.
Yeah. So I think there's a bit of that going on. I can't claim to be an expert on crypto. I went down the rabbit hole of trying to understand the asset class and I fell short.
I love crypto. Though,
All right.
I mean.
I started loving it.
So I think I fell in love with the concept of the blockchain technology.
Yeah.
Right. But
Yeah.
I just couldn't really understand blockchain from a perspective of assets. Right. And assets that seem to have people gave the characteristics to it that just didn't really qualify.
But haven't they explained it better? So, I mean, Bitcoin is akin to gold.
But it doesn't behave like gold.
It doesn't.
How do you know it doesn't behave like
It doesn't.
So I
It's
think if you plot global liquidity
Mm-hmm.
and Bitcoin share price, the correlation is very high.
It's almost like,
Right?
So you almost.
Yeah,
For example,
that's a
gold
negative
at the
correlation between-
moment is ripping, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Bitcoin is volatile and it's probably trending high, but it hasn't given you that protective characteristic. So, for example, during COVID-19, right, when the whole world was scared, right, Bitcoin rallied later, but the
But
initial
price were
stage
up.
was.
But this is still
And gold-
fairly
and
nascent.
gold is-
It's still
gold
fairly
is-
nascent, I
No,
think.
but
for
then
Bitcoin.
to say it
We're still in
behaves like
early
gold.
stages.
No, but doesn't
We're still in early stages.
I think
maybe eventually it will get the properties of gold.
Yes.
But I think if you plot,
Let's remember
if you
that-
plot a regression analysis
Yes,
of gold,
but let's
gonna say
remember,
negative
Samson. Let's
correlation.
remember
You're talking
that.
about risk on
Let's
assets.
remember that states don't back Bitcoin yet. States back gold, so you can't expect Bitcoin to behave like gold at the moment. It's gonna take a while.
Okay, that is.
But I kind of
that is-
feel like
that-
that's
that
where
is-
it's going.
So the
to.
reason. So think about
That's
it.
where
Think
it's going
about
to.
Bitcoin.
Then
because
Ethereum
think about
has
Bitcoin.
pure use cases.
So
Like
Yeah.
you just mentioned, XRP, which they've also decided to include in the strategic reserve, also has use cases for transfers.
which is the one I was talking about.
Cardano,
a few
same
shows
thing.
ago.
They all have use cases. Pure.
Yeah, but the attitude to
Use
gold
cases.
is different from
I don't know. So
No,
I
no,
don't.
no. So I
can
think
see
you're looking
crypto
at.
used as a
I think you're looking at it as a
portfolio
straight line gold to crypto. Definitely, it's not so. Generally, because of what he said
Yeah.
in terms of countries holding gold as strategic reserves. So, if, for instance, a major player with holding gold sold, for instance, it will not shake the global gold market because US is holding gold, this is holding gold, this is holding gold, and they are significant reserves. Like the US is holding $1 trillion in gold. I mean, how much gold do you need to sell to be able to shake the market? You get, but in crypto, it's different. There's nobody holding $1 trillion in crypto and just not doing anything with it, irrespective of what the volatility in the market is. If that were to happen, for instance, then if Arnold were to sell his $100 million worth of crypto in wherever, it will not shake the market significantly.
You have
that's a long way
that
away.
much crypto?
I wish I did. That's a long way away. That's,
So
that's probably a lifetime away
I don't.
for
Yeah,
gold
it is.
to be seen as for Bitcoin to be seen as gold. That's a lifetime away.
Let's be real. What Trump has said, even if I worry about the fact that it's difficult to be passed into law, but what he has started is a trajectory to that point. How the rest of the world evolved to it, I don't know.
I think that was the knee-jerk reaction when it was announced on Sunday. Everyone thought that, but when you really look into it, I don't think so. Like we said, $17 billion worth of crypto is
the thing is no. So there are there are several things out. He's mentioned too the DOJ assets, and there's also reevaluating. So the U.S. government is probably the largest owner of real estate in the U.S. So in that piece also, they did speak about evaluating the U.S.
We're talking about selling some assets.
No. Not really sell. Not really sell. It was more like leverage. Yeah. So leverage is
liquidity.
Yeah. Just the entire idea is to boost liquidity, even the gold reserves.
So who is going to fund that liquidity?
You and I, we know if they say we should come and do it, we will do it. So the thing is, even the gold, $1 trillion worth of gold, it's not like they were going to sell the gold. It's to leverage the gold to create liquidity. Maybe they'll create, I don't know, maybe $300.
But let me ask you guys.
But doesn't this? I'm a bit confused, right? Because there's just a lot of contradictory statements that come out of.
You will not be confused if you listen to what I said where we started from. The world order is changing. The US
from where to what?
It's changing from. So think about Iraq. So let's go back a bit. The Iraq War, right? The US unilaterally decided that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction. We're going to invade. Boom, they went in. The rest of the world kept quiet. Why? The US was just too powerful. Today, it's not the same. If the US were to do such a thing, a lot of people...
but there was also sympathies from 9/11 as well. So I do agree that we are now... And we are now moving into what I call a multipolar world order, where the US will continue to remain dominant. However...
Not as dominant, though.
But US will continue to be dominant. However... I think what it is struggling to come to reckon with is that there's going to be regional dominance in addition to US
That's
dominance.
What Trump is trying to fight. That's what... So all this is doing, in my opinion.
All right, guys. So we do get some of this feedback sometimes. Yeah. I mean, we've talked geopolitics, we've talked global, we've talked crypto. What does this mean for Africa, though? I mean, where do we find ourselves?
People will say, well, how
so should we be invested in crypto? Does, Trump deciding to include crypto in strategic reserve, do we expect anything from SEC? Should SEC be re-evaluating its own?
SEC is already.
Its own
they've dropped
crypto policy. Should we start also
Yeah.
doing the same thing early enough? I mean, we do have a very great youth population who are very savvy with crypto. So should we then perhaps maybe start to look in that direction? Probably, maybe not. Some of the other crazy cryptos out there, because there's a lot of crazy cryptos, but for some of these ones that do have very use cases, isn't it time that we have regulations that maybe start to move
do we
ahead?
not? Do we not already do the SEC?
Yeah, but it was panned.
No,
A
the
lot of
SEC.
crypto enthusiasts didn't like it.
No, the SEC.
I asked this question in episode 2. No one answered me. What happened to the e-naira? It's a genuine question.
No.
E-naira is
So-
not a crypto.
and
That's a CBDC.
But it's a
Please
stable. It's a
don't go there,
stable
please.
coin.
Please,
So-
leave it.
What? This is the same thing. Tell me what happened.
By the way, guys,
I'm genuinely
Drink.
I don't know.
What are you drinking?
I don't know.
What?
We'll go to your question in terms of impact on trade war on Africa, and by extension EM. So my base case was, and I think I had this conversation here, that we will see a relative slowdown in US growth relative to the rest of the world.
Yeah,
Right?
I agree.
That's if the tariff continues. if he stays.
Yeah,
Regardless.
that was
Or
my base
regardless.
case. Because
Okay.
I think the part that people don't appreciate, and maybe Tunji might disagree, I think economically speaking, Biden was a very good president.
I agree as well.
Very, very good president,
Tunji seems
economically
pro-Trump.
speaking.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm not pro-Trump.
he basically
Let's not do this.
bequeathed to Trump full employment, right? GDP plus 3% plus, right?
Inflation numbers.
Inflation
going down.
numbers that were decelerating,
Yeah.
and now the expectation was that Trump was going to turbocharge that, right? But I was always skeptical around that because of the uncertainty that his policy action would create, right? Because market loves certainty. And Trump wasn't going to give you that. And as a consequence, I felt like you were going to see a relative deceleration in US growth. And then markets like China and Europe that people have largely written off because of how much they've underperformed pretty much over the last post-COVID, right? We're going to surprise on the upside. So within that context, I felt like relative growth rates for the rest of the world in favor of the rest of the world, we pull capital out of the US, which is why when we did our buy, hold, sell, I had to sell on the US, right? And then that leads to a weakening dollar, and the weakening dollar should basically benefit emerging markets and frontier markets, and by extension, Nigeria should benefit from that, right? If that continues, that would be the case. However, there is a risk that is now evolving because like my assessment of US recession for 2025 was probably a 5 to 10% probability that the US would go into a recession because the economy was so strong, consumer spending was very healthy. And now, I think with what is happening with Trump, the uncertainty, the impact on inflation, the probability of a recession is probably around a 30 to 35% probability, right? If that stays and we don't go into a recession, but we see a material slowdown in US growth, I think that's positive for Africa and that will be positive for Nigeria. However, if things get really messy and the US goes into a recession, that's going to be bad for everyone.
So I don't think.
Why do you
I
think it
don't
would be bad
it
for
will.
everyone, though?
Right, because the dollar is going to be strong, right? Because there will be a flight to safety. There will be significant risk
Would it
aversion.
be a flight to safety if the US is in recession?
Yes.
Yeah,
kind of think
Yes.
Yeah.
There'll be
Yeah.
fighting.
Yeah.
Fighting.
Yes.
Mm.
Yeah. Although, I mean, these days we are in a new world order, right?
Yeah.
So previous rules might not necessarily
Exactly.
apply.
That rule-
But where are you going
But where
to?
will you
Where
go to?
will you
German
go
bones?
to? Exactly, where are you going to?
I don't know. What do you think? What's your own?
Yeah, I mean, I think-
how does this pan out for
I
Africa?
think for analysts, we'll have the same view, right? So as analysts, as EM watchers, so weak dollar is positive for us. So weak dollar also means our commodity prices are good.
Yeah.
A weak dollar means commodity prices are good. Commodity exporting countries like us, like Ghana with gold, South Africa, Kenya exports flowers and tea. It's good for Africa. It's good for EM. So
doesn't
we all
it-
have
but-
the same view.
but doesn't a
That's
recession-
and that's the crowded trade that you're seeing right now. Everyone's saying, okay, hold on a minute. It's a weak dollar we're going into. Let me look for cheaper assets in countries that export commodities. Our external debts also get serviced, so it's better for us. So weak dollar, where it's going right now, looks positive for us.
But doesn't a
So-
slowdown in US economic growth mean lower oil prices at some point? Shouldn't we be worried about
It
that?
depends.
Yeah,
It depends. And lower oil prices for me, within the context of Nigeria, is not necessarily a bad thing. And I would explain.
Samson.
I would
I need that explanation.
yeah, I would explain. Nigeria never benefited from high oil prices, largely because the transmission mechanism from oil revenues to fiscal receipts to reserves got
did, oh.
broken.
But we did
10
now.
years
Isn't
to
that
2014.
what we
No.
created?
that
Prior to
decade.
2014,
Okay.
I'm saying in the
Okay,
last 8 years.
Okay. All right.
In the past, Nigeria was a call option on oil, right? But that mechanism got destroyed
broken,
by both
yes.
Murphy and the subsidy, right? So when oil price, even during the Ukraine war, when countries like Angola and Saudi were posting great surpluses, we never did, right? If anything, we're in the middle of a currency crisis
'cause it was
at
still
record
on the oil
level,
anyway.
at record levels oil pricing. And the reason is that, okay, now that transmission mechanism has been restored. So if you look at oil fiscal receipts in dollar terms for Nigeria last year, it's still quite low relative to what we used to earn pre-2014, right? So now subsidy is gone, right? The relinkage of oil revenues back to the fiscals and back to the reserves, I think has been restored, but we need more data points to be able to confirm that. So in the event that oil price goes down, just because we haven't really earned a lot from the high oil price, we will not have a material, we will have Nigeria might be in a unique situation where oil price falls, as long as it doesn't fall too much. So if oil price retreats from like 70 to 60, oil revenues from the fiscals will actually go up.
How?
Because not production, because your take rates on your oil revenue as a result of the lack of subsidy has increased.
Okay.
Yeah,
That
but
makes
won't it increase more if prices were higher?
It will, but the problem is that you have to look at it from a bit. Where are you starting from? Where are you going to? So, of course, if oil prices are higher, it will increase more. But then there is a catch, right? And the catch is because you have now eliminated oil subsidy, the link between oil price and your inflation pass-through has been restored.
Agreed.
Right? So as a consequence, a high oil price will typically lead to higher fiscal revenues, but at the same time, it will lead to higher inflation. So I think that $60 to $70 oil price is a Goldilocks period where oil price is neither too high to have inflationary impact and not too low to have fiscal revenue impact. So Nigeria is now in a period where it needs a lukewarm oil price as opposed to a high oil.
So the only
oil
thing
price.
that I think is a problem is, and you would know that I like the strongman leader. I've always liked that. I mean that I wrote an article about how Africa needs to be Putinized. I know people would read all kinds. Putinized.
Putinized. Sorry. Okay.
I know people.
Putinized, like Putin.
Yeah, got it.
I know people will read all
careful what
sorts.
you wish for.
I know how people will read all kinds
But that's
of
what a lot of people were
meanings.
saying when Buhari came, right?
No.
Nigeria needs
So
Buhari.
Buhari was different.
Nigeria needs competence.
No,
However,
exactly.
we get the competence.
So
I don't care.
So Putin does have competence to some extent.
Not to some extent, he's a very competent
You
leader.
get so it's not just being a bully in office. We need a competent, strong man in office.
Yeah.
And the only issue I have in all these conversations is the world is shifting. You know, there's a seismic shift in the global order in terms of arrangements. We are not taking any space in this. There are vacuums being created. Generally, because for one thing, America is moving away from issues that does not concern it.
True.
You know, we are not stepping in.
No,
we are not looking
creating
for.
any value.
We're not doing anything.
We're not producing anything. Yeah.
At the end of the day, right, and it pains me to say this, Africa, if we don't wake up, we are going to become a vassal of either East or West.
Yes.
But that's what we've always been.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
But that's always. But haven't we moving
And
towards
you know,
the east now?
we did talk about that on the show. I think the first 2 episodes or so,
the West
when
is coming
we're
in.
talking about what's the name of the BRICS? Was it BRICS or so?
Yeah, bricks.
Yeah, we were talking about BRICS, and it was like, oh, the BRICS coalition is better than the US, and you know, the audience were like, oh no, yes, Tunji is very. I'm like, see, whether you're here or here, they are both bad people, and you need to chart your own course. What you're doing is looking at the better of two evils.
I say ultimately,
Why not just go into that evil construction?
So guys,
No. But improving degrees of freedom for any polity has to be a positive. So I don't think the US is altruistic towards Africa, neither is the Chinese. They all have objectives here.
Of course.
Right? And it's up to us, our leaders and our elites, to align their objective with ours, right? But having a choice to choose which pill you want to swallow
exactly.
has to be a positive, whether eastward. I can have the Chinese on the table, I can have the US on the table, and I can figure out what is in my
If
best
possible,
interest.
look at the pill from the perspective of not just one pill to swallow whole, but like pill in manufacturing, pill in real estate, check the pills in everything.
I mean, like I've always
Just look
said,
out for your best
Nigeria should just
Exactly.
Nigeria should be a beautiful bride without marrying anyone. But anyway, so we've seen crude oil prices fall.
Okay.
WTI dropped to about $66. Brent crude $69. We also saw a little bit of shift in the exchange rates. Aren't you guys worried about the intersection between crude oil prices and the exchange rate? Of course, crude oil output's going up. I think we did 1.5 in January.
Yeah.
February numbers are not out yet without condensates. So we do, to a large extent, still need oil prices to be slightly sticky. So with all these trade wars and,
I don't
Trump
think we
going
do
on,
so. I still don't think we should.
Isn't it a challenge for the exchange rate?
So maybe I should. You want to go first?
Go first, and I'll go up to you.
So it's a legitimate concern.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Because I had a mental framework around our path to exchange rate stability, right? And obviously, the ultimate goal with regards to exchange rate reform is to promote your non-oil exports, right? As a proportion of your total exports.
Yes, of course.
To do that, you require a lot of supply side reforms, and that takes a bit of time.
Still a long way to go.
It takes a bit of time. So there's a sequence to get there, right? And the sequence was in the short term, right? You focus on FPIs and you focus on building remittances, organic remittances flow. And obviously, you've equilibrated your economy by shrinking your imports relative to your exports as a result of the exchange rate pressure and the economic having retreated. And then in the very near immediate term, you promote oil revenues. And that is happening, right? So you saw Seplat results. You can see that actually oil production targets are improving from the guys who just acquired onshore fields. And if you look at the Delta, recounts are also going up. So if oil price volume goes up and oil price stays where it is, I don't even want oil price to go up because of the reasons I articulated earlier, then that creates some sort of stability that also promotes your ability to reinvest into these long-term supply-side factors such as port debottlenecking, road infrastructure, rail infrastructure that then allows you to be competitive. But I also think that obviously the collapse in unit labor cost that we've had as a consequence of the exchange rate adjustment also makes exports really interesting. There are quite a number of companies, you'll be surprised, like even retail companies in the UK that are talking to Nigerian manufacturers of white label products to supply into the UK market, largely because people are moving away from the East, of course, but there's a need to actually take advantage of the unit labor costs that exist in places like Nigeria.
Honestly,
But do you think this
Well,
unit
about
labor
time.
cost conversation, because I've heard you say it a few times,
Yeah.
do you think that it's going to last? Because at some point,
What would
one of the
If
cost
the
pressures
exchange-
that I
if the-
do see happen this year
Okay.
is increase in labor costs. It's just bound.
Yeah,
to
but
happen.
it's not gonna be enough.
nominal
enough.
increase.
Yeah,
So when
it's
I
not
look at
gonna be-
unit labor costs, I look at it in dollar terms, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's collapsed in dollar terms.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yes,
Whatever increase
like
you get,
like,
you're not
like
gonna
a
see
lot
that.
of people are seeing nominal increase in pay. Like even in my company, we've
But it
had to
still
make
affects margins
adjustments.
here anyway. I mean, most of them still collect.
it might,
Naira.
but
talking about
if you look at
exporting.
dollar
But you
terms-
also see
sense.
productivity gains. So you start. I mean, we'll come to numbers from public companies, I'm sure, because we've been quite a lot of
it's part of
reporting.
the things we talk about.
Right, but you will see. I think we are on the cusp of significant improvement in productivity.
So the
in
minimum
Nigeria.
wage is 70K every, and in dollar terms, that is still less than $50 a month.
Yeah,
A month.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm not worried. I don't think.
I mean-
don't-
So
I
Even
don't
if
know
you
why we
double,
like
even if
to
you double,
dollarize.
even
I
if you
don't
double
think
that,
wage growth actually
so
fixed it.
there are
but,
lots
but
of
if we're
lifetime.
talking about
I
exports,
mean, relative to what? So my point
we're
is
talking
always
about
my point is
exporting.
always sorry. My point is always when we talk about unit labor cost
Yeah.
and dollarizing it, relative to what? Is it in relative to revenue? Because at the end of the day, you still look at employee cost to revenue ratio.
True.
So has it gone down? Does it need to go up?
Or if you
No,
look
I
at
mean, you
employee-
can't just
if
look at it. You can't just dollarize
if
it without looking at.
No, but I
revenue
would
side as well.
compare
You have to
in terms of
dollarize
looking at it
exporting.
relative to my trade partners, right? I would look at unit labor cost relative to unit labor cost in countries that look like us,
Yes.
right? That could
Fair enough.
potentially compete for
the same-
onshoring
yes.
for the
so
same
this
kind
is,
of
this is the
manufacturing
same thing we're
capacity.
talking about. So, I mean, the thing is, this trade war is creating vacuums. So, for instance, I keep thinking, and nobody seems to say this. Canada has reciprocated with their tariffs, and I'm thinking, what's your alternative, really? Where else are you going with your energy?
Where else is who going?
Canada with their energy. Where exactly are they going with their energy? Where exactly are they going with their timber?
But what do you want the Canadians to do?
No, I'm not saying don't do
You're saying
anything.
they don't have the bandwidth to actually.
They really
push.
do not. Let's not
So remember,
Flipping the conversation. I'm trying to-
yeah, I know. Remember, Canada and the US are like twin brothers,
Yeah.
right? They
Yeah.
fought in wars together. No one could have imagined that there would be any dispute between both countries. Culturally, they're very similar. They've gone to war together. Canada was one of the first people that signed up for the Iraq War, right? So this is why it really hurts the Canadians so much.
Yeah,
right?
they feel very hurt.
And so when Canada business people and government are building, like when they were building their energy infrastructure, they just saw a large captive market next door, and
they
nobody
just-
thought about building any redundancies. And the process of
Yes.
evacuating that energy to export
Export
them
it.
is huge.
It's huge.
Capital. Yeah.
So I don't think there's an alternative for Canada.
So
and for
me,
US
what
anyway.
I'm even trying to say is, in those vacuums that are being left across the world because of this trade war, a lot of our manufacturing or our production really, which is still very small, and we need to acknowledge that it's very tiny. Whatever it is, needs to start taking advantage of the labor cost, whether it's 70,000, whether it's 100,000 naira, start to take advantage of the labor cost and start to see how we can start to export this, because we're talking about non-oil exports at the beginning of the show, so it's for me okay. So for instance, we were talking a few shows ago about the FMCGs, the conglomerates, and selling to the particular audience that they've been selling to previously. Maybe the new market is outside. Maybe the market that they should be selling to is no longer Nigeria, right? We've always seen.
But how do they build capacity to do that? It's not just easy. I mean, you can't just start manufacturing and all of a sudden start exporting. You do need time. I mean, AFCFTA is still.
I agree. These things will happen over time, but what I'm just saying is that we have the seeds, right, for the first time.
Why not just start,
right, to promote non-oil exports?
Yeah.
So let me ask you guys, put you guys on the spot now. So where do we? I mean, as Nigeria, and I've talked about this beautiful bright concept. Where should we align into? Should we align east? Because I mean, over the last decade or so, most of our trade has been eastward.
We should align here.
With Asia
Align here.
than with anybody else.
We should align here. What do we need? What do we need? What do we need? No. Think about it from this perspective. What do we need? I think this should be the beginning of any conversation. So what do we need in terms of our own growth projections? What do we need to get to the Nigeria where we have the same?
We need trade.
So if trade will happen regardless. My point is that trade will happen regardless. Trade will happen regardless, whether it's good or bad for us. Trade will happen regardless. The issue is what is best for Nigeria. We itemize what is best for Nigeria and go and look for the partner that will give us what is best.
So which partner? That's what I'm saying. Is it Asia? Is it West?
My point is, I don't think we are clear about what we need yet. That's my point.
But I think the government seems clear, because I mean, we've seen a lot of talk.
Have they articulated it to
eastwards.
us?
We've seen a lot of talk with the Middle East.
Okay, let me ask you.
Not as much talk with the West.
Answering Tunji's questions. Where are we trying to go?
Are you answering with a question?
No, I'm asking you.
Where are
it's
we
a
going?
good question. Where are we going?
Where are we going?
With what? That's what he asked as well. Something else. With what? Be specific. Where are we going with what? Is it with export? Is it with trade? Is it with manufacturing? Like with what?
So we started the show not being sure about Trump's trajectory. We're speculating.
I am sure about Trump. You're not sure about Trump.
We're speculating that he could be doing this, he could be doing that, he could be doing this, he could be doing that, right? Nigeria, where exactly are we going in this entire thing? Where? Even with the FPI conversations, what exactly is the plan? We're talking about it, I think,
the
last
president wants a $1 trillion economy. The president wants a stable exchange rate. You're asking me where we're going, and I'm telling you what he said. He wants a $1 trillion economy. He wants a stable exchange rate. He wants a growing middle class. Wait now, he wants export growth. You're asking me where are we going? And I'm telling you, at least from the policy point of view, that is where the government is going. They also want to reform taxes. They want to increase fiscal revenue. They want to cut deficit. They've gone back to central bank orthodoxy. So they want free market exchange rate. That's where they're going to. So when you ask me where are we going, I'm wondering.
So the thing is,
we know where they're going to. So my point is, who are we aligning with?
What you just said is akin to, I want my glass filled.
I can pour
on this table, we have 3 different things that can fill my table, my glass, right? So what you've called a $1 trillion economy is like having my glass filled. Now the question is, what am I filling this glass with? Because a $1 trillion economy can come from crude oil. A $1 trillion economy can come from exporting jobs. $1 trillion economy can come from manufacturing. Let me rephrase my question. What exactly is that $1 trillion made of? Let me rephrase my
question again. My question is, amidst everything that is happening, we've talked about crypto, we've talked about crude oil prices, we've talked about trade wars. We've also said there's a new world order. Okay? We've talked about trading blocks popping up everywhere. You've seen EU now, essentially rallying and saying, you know what? We need to be serious about our own self-sufficiency, even if it's from a security point of view. You've seen the US saying America first. You've seen China saying, you know what? We've been doing this as our Belt and Road Initiative. We're on our own. We're strong enough. So my point is, Africa, Nigeria, Sub-Saharan Africa, where should we align with? What should be our
So what is our thing though? What's
yeah.
our
So
thing?
what's our focus? And I can give you a snippet. I
What's our
can
thing
give you
here?
a snippet.
Actually, I remember.
I can give you a snippet.
Sorry. Yeah, go
You've
on.
seen Nigeria, particularly, decide to join the BRICS, albeit as a partner country. You've seen Africa as a continent come up with its own free trade zone and trying to see how we can encourage.
Which has not worked.
It's still
It's still early days.
It's still early days. It's still gonna take a
Still
lot.
ve-
How
it's still
early
very.
with
It's
the
still
early
very.
days?
It's gonna
still
take a lot.
very
There are a lot
early
of
days.
countries that are sorting out internal issues.
It's still
Let's
very
always
early
remember that
Yeah, but
several
also
African
remember-
countries have gone through, severe economic pain, exchange rate
give it
issues.
time.
It's gonna take a while. A lot of our infrastructure still needs to develop, but at least there's a conversation going.
Yeah.
And that is what Africa wants. So, amidst all of this, trying to have a zone, economic zone where tariffs are uniform, where trade moves freely, where perhaps maybe some regional blocks have their own currencies. Who should we align with? Is Asia better for us from a point of view of, perhaps maybe infrastructure development? You've seen China's Belt and Road Initiative. You've seen Europe as well cutting Africa from a resource point of view as well, perhaps as an alternative to gas, to Russia. You're also seeing the US, perhaps maybe probably don't give a damn about Nigeria at the moment, right? But at the Biden era, just a few months ago, we did see him make the last trip to DRC. That wasn't a joke. He went to Congo DRC for a reason. So again,
Why did he
where
go
does
to
this
DRC?
leave us? Lobito Corridor. Hello.
No, I'm asking why
Very
did he go
important to
DRC?
him.
To get cobalt, so what's
No, yeah, of course. Very
Yeah.
important that the US
Yeah,
secures
yeah,
Lobito
I'm
Corridor
just-
because the Chinese as well are building their own corridor as well.
yeah, of course.
Anyways,
I don't
I was
know.
trying to make
I always
some
find
controversial
find
points in that
these sort of
statement.
alignment conversations very challenging because I would always prefer that we are non-aligned and we have our own objectives.
that's why I said
honestly-
beautiful.
and
brand.
that's
Yeah,
what I-
but at the end of the day,
However, I really think Africa has a really exciting potential decade ahead of it.
Opportunity.
Of course.
And,
Right.
and I think our proximity to the European market hasn't
key.
been properly mined. And to be honest, Europe has been sleeping for a while, and I'm hoping that what is happening globally is a
We'll wake
wake-up
them
call,
up. Yeah.
right? Because I think it is insane that post the fall of the Soviet Union, Europe industry is still reliant on Russian energy when we have a lot of energy
Here in Africa.
in Africa, and you can just build that infrastructure. In the past, Europe can sanction a $20 billion project to build a pipeline from the Sahara into Europe.
Now they're
I
doing
think
that.
now they would likely do
They're
it.
serious about it.
They're serious
And so
about
that's my
it,
next
yeah.
question, right? So Samson, let me maybe rephrase this because I know I don't like the way I came with that. So let me try to rephrase it a little bit. So if you were to be in a team that is tasked with figuring out what we should be getting from Europe, what would be your response? Same thing, Asia. Same thing,
US.
the US. What do you think we should be getting from each of these countries or continents?
It's a good question. I mean, what does Europe need? Europe
Needs
needs
young
energy
workers.
security.
Yeah.
Good.
And Europe needs access to cheap labor.
Yes.
Good.
Right.
Yeah.
So to the
And we
extent
can provide
and,
one
and,
at least.
and what do we need from the
Growing
Europeans?
population.
We need capital. Right. So I think we can marry a combination of those, right? And Europe also for European businesses, right? It's actually in Europe's best interest to see growth in income per capita in Africa, because European companies can expand their markets, right? And we have
By
very,
exporting.
very, very close relationship by history of our colonial, not the
Yeah,
best relationships, but at least we have very close relationship, and they understand these markets very well. So I think that's what I would be thinking about with respect to unleashing European capital, take advantage of low unit labor cost, and also provide energy security for Europe. And if I was a European, I would take that deal because military Europe is a lot stronger than Africa, so you wouldn't have the Russian experience.
So I don't think we can ever be dominant in agriculture the way we want to be.
Right.
But I mean,
So dominance
we-
in agriculture. I don't
so-
understand.
Wait, sorry.
Yeah.
I'm trying to align this very well. So are you speaking to Europe or Asia based on what we want? Asia?
Europe.
Europe.
So
what should we be asking? What do we need from Europe?
So
He's talked
we
about
need capital.
capital.
We need capital. We need capital. And of all the forces in the world right now, Europe looks like the one who has what we want and needs what we have.
So what do they
So
need from
China
us?
also, I mean, of course, China is having their labor issues, but they still have relatively cheap labor in China.
Yeah, they can't get that.
You
So what
know?
does China need from us, and what do we need from
China
them?
really,
With
China
raw
doesn't need a
materials.
market to sell to.
And in raw
materials.
materials.
With raw materials,
yeah.
and the only thing they're going to give, they're offering us.
But we
is,
wouldn't develop by
you get,
exporting
so
raw materials,
Europe,
right?
Europe will
But isn't China developing Africa with
No. So
infrastructure?
the resource for
But they are,
infrastructure.
though. They are.
No. So
They are.
where has that resource
what's
for
the Belt and
infrastructure
Road
worked?
Initiative?
No, really. Stop. Let's
No, I
let's
don't
stop.
like the resource for infrastructure.
Where has it
deal.
worked? There's no
Right.
place on the African continent where the resource for infrastructure deal has worked. Insignificant to benefit.
So what should we be asking China for then?
I don't think we should be talking to China.
Are you serious?
No, not talking to China in terms of, because you're trying to make it an absolute. We're leaning completely.
No, I'm
toward-
asking you. My question was
So-
very simple. I was
Yeah,
like,
what do we need
What
from
do we
China?
need
What
from
do we need?
Asia? I didn't even say China. What do we need from Asia? And
I'll
do
tell
we
you what
from
I
us?
need.
We don't-
I'll
what I
tell you what I
need-
need
what
from
I
the
need-
Chinese. If you want markets, and you need to expand markets, because unfortunately your citizens have a very high savings rate. You're being gated from the Western
I
world.
wonder why they keep saying we have high savings rate. But go on.
No, not
No,
us.
Chinese.
The
Oh, okay,
Chinese.
Chinese,
okay.
I don't know. We don't have high savings rate.
I read that somewhere.
No, we don't.
Okay.
The Chinese have extremely high,
High
savings
savings
rate.
rate. Yeah, Japanese as well.
Chinese production is being gated from Europe.
Mm-hmm.
China has huge level of productive capacity.
Mm-hmm.
We can be markets for them, but on the promise that you give us some IP.
not just
Intellectual
IP,
property, you mean?
not just
Yeah.
IP, not just IP, but also
IP comes with
significant.
manufacturing.
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
So that's what I mean. When I say IP, I just use it.
But isn't
human
that
capital.
what they do?
No, they don't do that.
they don't give you
that.
IP.
They absolutely
Yeah,
do
They
not
don't give
do
you
that.
IP.
Keep it
They
within themselves.
absolutely
They don't
do
give you
not
IP.
do that. They
I
I mean,
aggressively
remember
do not do that.
China.
you guys.
Remember,
do that.
China developed by stealing IP.
Yeah, exactly. So they know
the game.
So let's move to because we've got to
They
end
know the
this
game.
geopolitical conversation. So US, what do we need from the West? US, Canada, and what do you think they want from us?
I just want
I
to
mean,
think
like
about
we're still an SO country from
That's what I'm
some
saying.
point of
Even
view.
Asia had to think about it because Europe are 100%. I'm not.
And
getting
Europe
back
is
on
clear.
it.
Asia, I
Europe
think
is
we-
clear.
we
Asian population, they
fix
need.
that. US,
I need to-
US, Canada, immigration. Don't you think they need cheap labor as well?
No.
Do they?
No.
I mean, they've had a lot of that. from
US
us. They
maybe,
do.
Canada, yes.
Canada, US have
but
always
for me,
wanted to from us sometime. But
US
what do we need from them? They don't buy our crude anyway. I mean, the decade to 2014, trade between Nigeria and US was about $270 billion.
That was because we were buying.
Decade after, trade is about $70-something billion.
yeah,
I mean, because they were
yeah.
buying a lot of our crude.
Yeah.
So
And now-
what do we need from them? And I mean, that decade was when we had purely, stable economy, stable forex, stable GDP growth was good. So what should we be? I mean, if you were to be in a room to deal with
I feel
Trump,
like you've thought this thing through
What
because
would
now
you
I'm thinking, why should we align with the US? I feel like you've thought this thing through.
No,
and
I'm
you're
just
coming in-
asking. I'm just asking.
No, he has.
So I don't.
Well, why should we align with the US? The answer-
Exactly.
The answer,
Yeah.
the answer is simple. As long as we trade in dollars, we have to.
We need-
So what do we need from them? Okay, so what do we need from them? FPIs?
I think
that's-
fund flows are important.
Yeah,
capital flows
so the
extremely
US will
important, and-
always be that dominant partner for us in terms of capital flows. It will
Yeah.
always be the dominant. I don't think China
I
is
think
going to
it
give
puts-
us
But
the
I-
capital.
I
in terms of
suspect
capital
most
flows.
of our FPI comes from Europe as opposed to the US, though.
I don't know.
So that's the debatable. But,
Yeah,
but
Europe
one thing
though.
I
I
can
mean, it
assure,
depends on-
or
Even
one-
if it comes from
one
Europe,
thing
if
we
it
can
comes
agree. One thing that we
from
can agree on
US,
this table
Europe,
is that it's not
yeah,
coming from
maybe,
China.
Yeah.
No, but China
It's
don't
not
do.
coming from
But China
China.
don't have
China
a
doesn't
large.
have FPI.
They don't have a
So-
large
so-
portfolio
so-
investment.
so leave
But
China
I'm surprised
completely-
you guys think China, we're not getting from China. Anyway, we got to move on.
No,
guys.
nobody's
Like,
saying.
I'm really-
I never
nobody's
said-
saying-
I mean, let's be clear, I
there's,
never-
there's
one
a
hour
Yoruba
already.
thing. There's a Yoruba thing they say that you use bread. I don't know how to say this.
I know you don't know how to say it. Because I knew.
Maybe AI will translate it.
No.
Suji just has a Yoruba
so you
name,
know
but
when you're
to speak it,
so it's so we're all have a bowl of stew, right? So we're all eating the stew, right? And then somebody brings a loaf of bread. And then just uses the loaf of bread to take all the stew. You know the way this bread would just soak up the stew.
Yeah.
That's the way that I
Someone
generally
please help
feel like
explain
the
this on the comment
Chinese.
section.
You know, they come in, dangle one or two things and take 17.
And you think the Westerners don't do the same?
No,
Exactly. That's what I mean. Like,
No,
that's what I'm wondering.
I'm more comfortable with the Chinese
They do
than-
that, They do
The
that.
last I remember, the people who put us in chains were not Chinese.
Exactly.
They could have been.
And the people who
They
sponsored
could have
coups
been. They were just not in
Chinese.
this
Also-
place. They were just not in the place to do it at the time. Historically, look
Anyway,
at
we
it.
gotta
They were just
move
not in
it.
the
We
place.
gotta
But
to
is
do it at
there
the time.
any evidence? Is there any evidence in history where you've had an expansionist China that have basically subjugated other people?
Hong Kong?
No. Hong Kong is part of China. That's what they think.
It is.
That's another conversation, guys.
I mean,
Anyway,
your
guys, let's move on. Let's move on. Let's move on. By the way, if you're just watching
was Mongolian,
this
so-
session, this is Drinks and Mics brought to you by Diamond Drinks. And it's been an interesting conversation so far, and
Okay.
we're gonna just move right into our earnings. It's the earnings seasons, by the way. There's been a lot of results out. I know we don't have a little time to dedicate to earnings because a lot of you really want to know what's happening with just your investment with stocks, and a lot of us here do invest in equities. But there were some interesting numbers out during the week, and we'll just touch on some of them, just get a view. One that stuck out for me was MTN. MTN pushed out their numbers, and we know it's been a very difficult period for MTN. Revenues, by the way, were super good. Revenues were 3.3 trillion. That's about
As expected.
$2.7 billion,
Yeah.
up from 2.4 trillion the year before. But of course, what we all expected was, the losses, and MTN did almost 400 billion naira in losses, 399 by the way, $1 billion, up from $138 billion in losses the year before. Guys, I don't know if you've seen MTN numbers or anything, stick out for you that, is this the last? Because I think the last quarter of the year they did push out a bit of profit. So are they at the tail end of this? Issue that they have now? Is this going
But
to be a better year for
didn't
MTN?
somebody say that they were it was I can't remember which guest did we have that said this was the last bad result they had or something like that. Can't remember.
I think for me, one interesting thing about MTN is with the impact on the renegotiation of the dollar
IHS.
OPEX. Yes, and that's why I like MTN. You can look at some other numbers and say, okay, FX changes and they'll just go with the flow. But I feel like they saw it happening and decided to renegotiate. So OPEX, which was about $40 OPEX, was 45%. It reduced to 20% due to
25.
negotiation. 25% in negotiation. I don't think the market understands that. And that margin, obviously margins were, EBITDA margins were 50% pre Nigeria started, and now it's shrunk down to 30-something%. I think that negotiation gave them a nice boost in Q4 with about maybe 40-something% of the EBITDA.
Yeah, but there were some dollar repayments that came through that
But I think that's all now cleared.
No, I'm saying that they got $1. I think
repayment
I think
that
they
came
get them.
there.
So the margin was overstated. I think when you strip that out, the margin for Q4 was actually 41% and not 46%.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, but still not where that 30% where it was to the
No, there's
quarters.
sequential
So-
improvement in the numbers for sure.
Yeah,
I think
I think so. I think the
let
market
me
hasn't priced that in properly to see.
so
Why do you think so? So sorry.
Yeah,
before you
because the share
comment.
price hasn't moved how it should. Right? So
Why should it move though?
why shouldn't?
Because he said
Because you've renegotiated one of the things weighing you down, right? And you've reduced your OPEX for me significantly with that renegotiation.
So I'm guessing I know the person that is long MTN.
I'm long MTN, by the way.
Exactly. Thank
So
you
let me
for joining.
let me put it this
because
way.
he's just going like let the market.
No, let me
Love
put it this way.
MTN.
One of my biggest frustrations with MTN over the last 12 months is that I couldn't fully understand where the FX losses were coming from.
Boom.
Right? And when we felt my team, because we look at MTN, when we feel like we understood it, and then the thing
It
comes
just-
even
it
worse,
just
and then
scatters
it comes
again.
even worse,
Yeah.
right? For the first time in Q4, it finally feels like we are having a handle of what MTN's balance sheet looks like, right? So that is a good thing. Secondly, is there is sequential improvement in the operating performance of the business, right? Which is good. We still need a
Yeah.
couple. We still need a
Which is
couple
good,
of
sorry. Yeah.
quarters of data point to confirm our views. And obviously, the market is very pessimistic that MTN will probably not pay dividend for the next 3 years because of the large retained
Yeah.
earnings.
Yeah.
And Nigeria has
Retained
a very
losses,
retained
negative
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 equity,
retained earnings.
right, negative retained earnings.
Yeah.
And Nigeria I think Ugo Dre is the accountant, so he will get frustrated by this. But Nigeria Karma has a weird rule around stopping businesses with negative retained earnings from paying dividend.
Yeah.
Right?
Because that's
especially when the dividends
paying
is
out
not
capital.
Out of,
paying out of your capital.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm an economic guy, so I look at things from a perspective of
What's
cash
good?
flow.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Can the business generate enough cash flow to pay its stakeholders, its debt holders, and its
Yeah.
equity holder? And that answer for me for MTN is a unequivocal yes.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
However, I think when you look at Q4 numbers and you look at tariff going up, and you look at operating margins improving, I think the market might be surprised as to how quickly
they recover
that
from
recovery will be.
But I think I'm not sure. I mean, I don't know.
But
Because
the
I was
reason-
looking at their
let me just-
numbers. Sorry, I
okay.
was looking at their margins. Gross profit margin 2023 was about 71%.
Yeah, so
2024 it's 53, 54%.
strong,
No, it's
strong.
still down. It's 4% in 2024.
No,
Yeah.
20, I think for me,
So
recovery
do
started
they
in
need-
MTN in Q4.
Q4 exactly.
Yeah.
So they're
Yeah.
currently
So-
recovering because recovery. I mean Q4 as well.
So
based on
so
that,
how
it's
long
the
will it
gross-
take
gross-
MTN?
57%.
Those fears of not
27.
those
So,
fears
so
of,
in the years of
Go
70%
I agree.
margin, is it gone?
I think it is.
Is
I
that
think
year
it
gone?
is.
The periods of 70 plus gross profit margin, is it gone for
GP
MTN?
margin.
Except, I mean, now that they've increased,
No, but I'm looking
they
at
increased
EBITDA.
tariff by 50%.
So there are a couple of things that I think might work in their favor, but I don't know. Remember that we had the NIN deregistration in 2024.
Yeah.
So when you actually look at subscriber growth for MTN in 2024, it was up about 2%. If you normalize for NIN deregulation, that is probably like a 7 to
Yeah.
10% growth in subscriber numbers.
They reported 1.6% growth, 80.9 million.
Yeah. So it's like less than
Yeah,
2%, but I think the number is higher
Yeah.
when you normalize for NIN reduction. So I think going through this year, you probably see an improvement there. Data traffic is also very strong.
Yeah, this
Yeah.
traffic is very strong.
Right,
Yeah,
which is
yeah.
positive. But I think with the increase in price, traffic
Yeah.
should go down this year because of. And I noticed that even for people like myself, that I'm a huge data consumer, the pace at which my MTN gigabytes finishes these days is so high that when I get home, I switch quickly to my home Wi-Fi that is unlimited.
Yeah.
By the
So-
way, what do you guys use at home, though? What do you guys use at home?
I use main one.
Wi-Fi. What do you use?
IPNX.
Oh, that's a good one. And there's not IPNX in my area. That's the
Oh,
problem.
really?
Yeah.
There's one fiber that I
Fiber
I
one?
honestly no it's one I don't want to call their name because they are just
why?
terrible.
What they do?
No, because they are that
probably
terrible.
watching and
They are that terrible
probably
that
them
if you do say them, it will probably get more people to. No, I don't. It's just know that it has a fruit in the name.
Tell us.
It has a fruit in the name. Very terrible. You know.
really?
Every time I have like
Comment section. If you know what he's talking
backup.
about, please tell us. But I use Starlink.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
That's
yeah,
all
that should be
yeah.
good. No?
Yeah. It's good.
Is it good?
Very good.
Because IPNX is shut down too much, man. So many issues.
Oh, they
now
shut
and
down?
then. Yeah, just every now and then, especially on
But
Saturdays.
again,
an
sorry,
infrastructure issue.
going back to why the market has not priced in, it's really the dividend issue. A lot of people who buy
Retail investors
into
like dividend, but
yeah, they like dividends, and it is clear, knowing the trials and tribulations MTN has gone through in the
They want
hands
to
of
wait for confirm.
authorities,
Yeah.
they will err on the side of caution.
I mean, legally, you can't pay dividend out of negative return earnings.
No, you can't. So, but the
can't.
question
So
is, the
it's not
question
even
that
whether they want or
analysts
not.
that we have to answer as analysts is how quickly it will take.
It will take for
Yeah,
them to
turn
come
around.
to so
Just to put
so
some
that's the
perspective to
negative.
that.
So it's not really negative. It's not like they've beaten the equity itself. It's just they are not as excited, you know, with the numbers.
I do think that MTN needs to raise equity at some point, just to give you.
Hey, no.
So let me explain. Let me explain.
Raise Baho.
MTN has hold on now. MTN has negative assets of 458 billion naira.
Yeah.
Negative shareholder funds.
It's more than
458
that.
billion.
Oh yeah.
Aside-
Retained
aside-
earning is
yeah.
like minus 600
Yeah,
billion.
return earnings is about minus 600. You're correct.
Yeah.
So be chirping around that. So to actually get to where they need to make profit, you need to see MTN make at least 2 years back to back of '1 trillion naira in profit.
Can I ask a simple question? In
So how did
Q4
you do
alone,
that?
they did 114 billion PAT without price increase. Annualize
In
that over
Q4
Yeah.
PAT. Hold on, I have the numbers here.
114 billion.
Okay, yeah, 114 million.
Okay. Annualize
Q4.
that and include a 40% price
So if you
increase.
analyze that, multiply that by 4, that's 500 billion. That's what I'm saying. It's going to take them 2 years.
Yeah, but it doesn't need to have a large equity position to be able to pay dividend. It just needs to be positive, no?
You need to be positive, but I mean, how positive? Because you still.
I don't want to be talking up
you need to
analysts
give some-
because
you need to give some
That's
retained
why I'm just
earnings.
quiet.
You need
Because
to
the thing
give
is,
some
I had the
retained
same
earnings
conversation with my analyst today.
You need to give some retained earnings anyway. So
Yeah,
my
but
theory
I had
is
the
that
same
my
conversation
theory is
with
that
Sam. Me, I'm
my theory
smiling.
is this. My theory is
Like, Samson, please talk it up.
MTN.
I'm not talking
I
anything
think
up.
MTN
I'm
has
talking
always
anything up.
been
MTN is sell.
MTN has always been a very low. Oh my god!
Let me
We haven't
create
even
pain.
got to the buy seller.
Let me create pain
I
for
beg, no.
Lord.
But I feel like everyone on this table is a holder anyway. So
Lord.
buy.
Anyway, we gotta go to
buy, sell,
the
hold,
we'll get
MTN.
there. We gotta go to the next. We gotta go to the next company. We gotta go to the next company quickly. Next on the block as well is a Swoot. So at Nairametrics, we have what's called a Swoot. So the stock's worth over 1 trillion naira in market capitalization. I don't know if MTN is still a Swoot, but Dangote Cement obviously is Swoot. Numbers were out. Samson. The way you got that, I said. Dangote Cement numbers were out. 3.5 trillion in revenue. MTN is very close to Dangote Cement in terms of the highest revenue earner in Nigeria, up from 2.2 trillion a year before. But profit after tax 503 billion, up from 455 billion naira. I mean, what do you guys think about that result? Anything there that endears you? I don't know if any of you guys
I
checked it
will.
out. I mean, cement companies struggled this year.
I don't want to sound too pessimistic because I think what Dangote Cement has achieved over the decades has been nothing short of phenomenal. However, I have always had a problem in my head with the cement sector, and that problem is very simple. When you look at capacity in the sector, I think at the time when we looked at it, there was probably over 40 trillion metric tons of capacity across the sector, WAPCO, BOA, and Dangote.
Yeah.
But Nigeria was kind of around 16 to 17 trillion in utilization, so there was like less than 50% capacity utilization. And one of the things that bugged me was how is it that pricing stayed so high when there was so much excess capacity in the industry? Obviously, that was largely driven by, I don't want to use the word oligopolistic behavior, but make your...
I think we all
I don't think so. I mean, that's what everybody says.
It was.
No, I think my theory is one of the reasons why prices has remained pretty high is because one, the owners of the two major cement producers in Nigeria, which is Aliko Dangote and Rabiu, have close to 90% ownership of Dangote Cement. That's one. Now, two, they are also quite leveraged, not because of Dangote, not because of their cement explanation,
because of the other things
they're doing. And so for them,
there's no incentive to price war.
Exactly, to actually pay down some of the debt.
So herein lies my pessimism.
So you always have to have
welcome
sticky prices.
Welcome the Chinese, Hoxin, who are now buying WAPCO.
Yeah.
Do you think that pricing discipline will
They're probably
remain?
going to crash prices
when they arrive. So I agree. I think that was a brilliant explanation, and I think it makes sense.
Yeah.
But with the entry of Hoxin, go and look at the EBITDA margins that business runs at.
Yeah.
Entering into the market, number one, I think firstly they're going to debottleneck WAPCO's plants very, very fast, right? So that 5 or 6 metric tons of capacity they have is going to get to 10 very quickly. And then these guys will be able to accept, they can run this thing for 15% EBITDA margin. The Chinese don't care. So within that context, is this still an attractive industry?
How much of WAPCO's production is completely local?
It's all local.
All local. It's Dangote.
It's all local. The only argument that some of my analysts have made is that cement don't travel very well. So oftentimes what then happens is that production facility are captive in certain regions. So you have regional dominance. So you have areas where Dangote Cement dominates and you have areas where Boa dominates, right? So unless you are transporting clinkers, which we don't really do, it's the ability, once you start moving cement over a certain distance, the economics of that logistics cost overwhelms your eventual price. So that's the argument why people are...
So basically distribution, if you better distribution means better sales.
Yeah. But
Obviously.
But I mean, nothing stops the Chinese from doing clinkers on Lekki Port and producing.
Yeah, and the Chinese have also mastered the art of distribution as well. Locally.
So I don't know.
So it's gonna be a very interesting cement market over the next few years.
So
there'll be a buy, sell, or hold.
And it will be a super. I think it will be good for the Nigerian consumer.
With
actually.
a Nigerian economy that has a massive housing deficit. I saw some real estate guy recently talking about the housing issue in Lagos, where he was talking about
loves housing discussions.
Oh, he loves
no.
it.
I think he has a number of. I think he has a few.
Formal markets.
He has a
and
few
cheap housing.
like.
I have a
Yes.
significant issue.
I thought you were going to
with
say I
real
have a hot
estate.
take.
No, see,
in Nigeria.
no. I have my hot take for today.
Okay.
He was talking about the fact that housing in Surulere is so bad that that inspections aren't just one agent and client anymore. Is agent and maybe 3, 4, 5 clients who are possibly looking to rent the house. That
Really?
yeah.
Isn't that what they all say?
No, I mean he has no reason to say this. So he's saying that
There's huge housing deficit. The
There's a
problem,
huge
however, is
housing
that
deficit.
the price point of supply will never close that deficit.
So my point is
so
you
isn't that
can't
because
bet
we don't have-
against cement companies on the long term because the housing deficit is so huge that long term,
I'm an investor. I don't do long term.
No. Can you just recoin that? I'm a Nigerian investor. I don't know long
invest
term.
in Germany.
I don't know long term in Nigeria.
By long term is a series of compounded short terms.
Anyway, guys, we gotta move on. There was another company in the news during the week as well. One of my favorite companies, by the way, that's Nestlé. Nestlé numbers were out. Also
The best run
struggling.
company in Nigeria.
Yeah,
I like
you
Nestlé.
think it's the
I
best
like
run company in Nigeria?
I like Nestlé.
I mean, well, Nestlé is the best run company in Nigeria, but while they were running Nestlé, they did not envisage losses. That
It's
they-
Nestlé.
So revenue almost hit a trillion naira in 2024, 958 billion. But losses ballooned from 104 billion.
Yeah, but Nestlé is a
to
macro
21.
story.
So what's your story, man?
Nestlé for me is a macro story.
As Otuba
unfolding.
said,
Macro story.
Yeah, because inflation read through, you can see.
a carpenter to do a plumber's work.
I read that and said, but yeah, I mean, you can see inflation read through on the costs. You can see effects, and now you can see the turnaround in the macro. So for me, that's what I mean by a macro story. So macro's turning around. Inflation's coming under control. Maybe not as under control as we want, but definitely not as sticky as we.
So
see
Nestlé-
it. And then effects turn around. You're going to see it playing on the cogs.
So Nestlé might be that one that may need to raise a bit of money.
Yeah,
You think
it
so?
will.
I mean,
It will. But the turnaround
they
is there.
also had a good Q4.
I
Q4
know,
numbers
but
were positive. So why do they need to raise money?
Not the
And then
scale.
MTN.
Because I think with Nestle, it is very likely that retained earnings will stay negative for 18 to 24 months
If they don't raise.
if they don't raise. Yeah. But with MTN, I won't be surprised that
But
it
MTN
comes
has always
positive.
had one of the lowest net assets out there in comparison to their balance sheet.
It don't, I mean,
Relative to their balance
like
sheet.
who looks at net asset for a telco or a consumer company?
I mean,
Only you go
you have to
trade.
go trade. I do look at it. I did my chest. I look at an accountant.
When you're talking about a bank, tell me about net asset. When you're talking about a consumer, because first thing, like,
But I love the model until so
Ugodre, what is
now?
the biggest asset in an FMCG company?
Inventory.
No, brand. It's not in the balance sheet.
And the brand is not in the balance sheet.
It's not in the balance sheet. Again, this is the point where you don't look at net asset.
As an economist.
But it's still in inventory.
Or the second thing is
Brand is still in inventory.
like the other thing that makes these businesses really powerful is their route to market and their distribution.
Yeah, the
How do you
distribution.
capture that in the balance sheet?
Yeah.
And distribution
I
cannot be replicated easily.
I mean,
it's
you
not
can say
something
whatever
you
you
can
want.
tune
See,
off and
if
tune
you
on.
go and buy any branded FMCG product today, you pay multiples of net asset by definition.
Exactly.
Agreed.
It's only in Nigeria. That is why I love the country so much.
So that's why.
That gives me a discount or replacement cost to buy consumer goods company.
But that's just
Nigerian breweries being one.
But that's just in recent years now.
It's recent years.
But
It wasn't like that
now.
before. I mean, at some point, Nestle was trading at like 30 times. 30
So
times.
do you think we will go back there?
We will. I think we will go back there at some point. I agree with you. We will. But it all depends on how quickly they
I think we'll go back there. I think we'll go back there.
I don't know how soon. I mean, I'm actually. We'll get to.
But when it will happen,
later.
when it will happen, 100%, 200%, 300% return, I'm patient. I can't wait.
And that's one
I
of
have
those
a track
ones,
record
right?
of being able to wait.
But I'm surprised you think MTN will clean up its balance sheet faster than Nestle.
Yeah.
When Nestle's
Because the regulator just told me that they can raise prices by 50%.
Yeah, but Nestle's negative.
Easily.
No.
That's
That
how-
already solves it. That solves it because that route to debt market is easier for if they want to. It's easier for MTN.
But Nestle's
I mean, the MTN story is not very clean yet.
Yeah.
We need a few quarters to be confident, but the path looks interesting.
But let me ask you guys a question though. Why is it that we had these FX problems with MNOs, that's multinationals, and we didn't have it with locals? I mean, is
What
there
about
something that
locals?
the multinationals need to? I mean, it was
How
only
many locals we
multinationals.
have
Finance
listed?
costs.
We have a lot of locals listed. Dangote is listed. Boa is listed.
Dangote chop cane now, Dangote sugar.
Yeah,
But
Dangote
they didn't have.
Serious game.
But they didn't have negative return earnings.
They did.
They didn't have negative shareholder funds.
Sugar did.
But Sugar didn't have negative shareholder funds.
Sugar did.
No negative shareholders funds. We can check that. They didn't have negative shareholders funds. None that I'm aware of. So how come most locals did not? But MNOs did. So what can they learn? I mean,
So very
let's have to
simple.
give our locals some credit.
No.
now.
So
Did they have
firstly,
foresight?
locals don't have Big Daddy that was giving them raw
Yes,
material
and
costs.
now-
Exactly.
So the finance costs.
So what then happened?
So what
So what
happened
then
to
happened?
locals, and this is the part we're not talking about, is that people shut down production, right? Or significantly reduce their production.
And they could do
when
that
they didn't have FX
because they didn't
availability.
have they could
But what
do
was
that.
happening is that Big Daddy
But they
was saying,
didn't
take
shut
raw
down.
material,
I
take raw
don't agree.
material.
Yeah, they kept
Exactly.
They kept
So,
producing.
but for some of the
Yeah.
locals that I spoke to, what they did as well was they basically, I think locals were faster
In
when
backward
it
integration.
Exactly, in backward. They were faster.
Yeah, but the
essentially
question is
just-
that you can backward integrate a one-line plant.
Yeah,
But you have
yeah,
a three-line plant. How do you
I don't know what to do to this guy.
But it's true.
This is not fair. Like, come on, like, I mean, like we're at the same production level with you.
But it's true now. Like, when you go to the next day and say you want to back on the how many maize do you want to plant?
No, even just the consistency. So
I see the way Samson, I see the way Arnold and Tunja are laughing. Like,
no, but you know it's true now. You
It's
know
not
it's true. It's true.
It's not
so
true.
even the consistency. So there's this. There's
not
this
true.
person that does dry fruits, and she was talking about the fact that just to even get the consistency in mangoes across Nigeria is difficult. As in the same species, the same type across, so that you can have consistency in the taste of your product. It's difficult.
Having said that, these multinationals have done a good job at backward integration.
They've improved.
Yeah.
They've
So
improved.
I don't understand why.
But it
you guys-
does take time.
So
It
what
does
about
take time
locals?
because of
Locals
Big
have done
Daddy.
better.
It takes time.
Because of Big Daddy. So I mean, and
Anyway,
you can't blame them.
last
though.
company.
When Big Daddy does good, it's good.
I think the biggest winner in all of this thing is Big Daddy, because Big Daddy are able to pick up equity
Yeah,
at cheap prices.
for cheap. Yeah.
we saw what PZ is doing.
So exactly.
It's on PZ now.
Yeah.
PZ is basically converting his debt to equity. I mean,
Yeah.
anyway, Seplat released the numbers. One of the locals as well
Right,
that I think
Seplat's
are
one
doing
of,
pretty well.
Yeah.
Even if you guys don't want to give it to
Yeah.
them, even Seplat.
Who
numbers are-
is the person that doesn't want to give it to them?
You guys know. You guys don't give it to
No,
them.
there's nobody on this table.
really?
Nobody is.
Seplat is the nation's
I think Seplat is likely
Oh.
going to be one of the most valuable independent oil
I agree,
producers
100%.
globally.
I agree 100%.
Seplat
That's a huge
And
stake
do you know
there.
what's really
Seplat
interesting? Even
Is that your own take?
Even this MPN
Globally, not Africa. You said globally.
Globally, yeah.
Yeah.
Why
I agree.
though? I mean, what's
Even
the
this
moat?
MPN
Independent,
What's the moat?
independent. I mean,
Why? I mean-
I think the gas opportunity is insane, especially with the
Yes.
field, right?
How much gas reserves do they have? That's
I
gonna
can't
give them
remember
that sort
from the top of my
ambition.
head. No, it's huge. It's huge. MNPU gas hasn't been explored. for a long time. So that is big. I think the business is still predominantly oil. I think oil is about 80-something% of the business. Obviously, they have the ANOH gas processing plant that is coming on stream in Q2 this year. That should, I think, more than quadruple, I think, at full capacity, their existing gas. I think Seplat will become a dominant player in Nigeria power sector.
Yeah.
Right. By
And they are
providing
also-
gas.
Nigerian
also
power
MTN.
sector.
I was looking
Yeah,
at
by providing gas to
providing
Gencos.
gas.
Okay.
Yeah, to Gencos. Yeah.
But
I mean,
by-
they did
by
that already.
extension, by
And then
extension-
MNPU goes into PIA game changer.
That's what I'm saying. The 75% effective tax rate that goes down, it just finishes it. For me,
I kind of feel you guys are long Seplat.
So
these guys sound like
it is hard not to be long a business,
Yeah.
right? That pays you a quarterly dividend of like 3 cents a quarter, gives you a final dividend, and there's a massive upside on production, right? And then there is exploration upside. So there's like the core business is paying you handsomely. I mean, at like what? 10 to 12% dividend yield, and then on top of that, you have
It can't be up to 10% dividend yield.
not now, but I think at the time
At
when
some
I
point.
invested, that's what it is.
see, I like that I'm quiet. I'm quiet because it's just talking
For
about-
you to be getting 10% dividend yield on Seplat
got it.
now, then your capital appreciation is wild.
Yes, more than 100%. Yeah.
Lord have mercy. We got to move on. Another thing that made the news last week was, CBN and his ATM charges. Tunji, I know this is your own area, and I really want your take here.
Hot
I
take.
don't know whether that's where your hot take is, but at least the CBN, I think they said, is it 100 naira per withdrawal?
Yeah, withdrawal.
Yeah. So people are wondering, why do you have to pay that much? I mean, I've heard banks talk about ATM charges and cost of maintaining ATMs, but bank margins are still huge. So why can't it be one of those costs that you absorb
No.
as part of your service?
Let's not do this. Let's not do this. There are a few things to this conversation. The first one is Nigerians, you and I, are paying significantly higher to the POS guys. Significantly higher. So if you go to a POS guy to withdraw 5,000 naira, I think they take 200 or something. I can't remember how much it is.
Yeah, isn't it because that POS arrangement is inefficient?
No.
How much do you
So
want guy to make?
that is the alternative. That is the alternative. ATM management is expensive for banks. It was always expensive. It was
What is
never,
not expensive for banks?
No. So my point is, it was a cost. It was a cost center because it wasn't really generating any. It wasn't useful aside from regulation.
Is
and
it meant to
making
be a profit center for banks?
Well, it should be.
I mean, isn't it a
It
service?
should be, because think
I mean, it's
about
all
it.
part of
If I create an
service.
ATM machine and it is specifically for my customers, I add it into my factoring as value add for my customers. So I think about it as the full experience that I'm giving to my customers, right? But the fact is, you've allowed it to be a situation where anybody can use. So
Well, Tunji, let me play devil's advocate here.
Yeah.
I'm sorry I'm buttoning him because I get a lot of people who said, ask Tunji, be hard on him on this one. So, yes. So, I hear you. But on the flip side, the ATM is the same thing or almost the same thing as me, or replaces me going into the bank to actually withdraw money. I mean, because I would have done the same thing. So
No.
no. So there's nobody in the counter.
No.
It's replaced by a machine.
Ugodre, when last did you go into a banking hall to withdraw cash?
Last week.
Why?
Because ATM,
concerned.
ATM wasn't working.
I'm concerned.
ATM
Why?
wasn't working.
That's a very unique thing, and I think the audience should really.
Yeah. So my point is that
for me, right? I have priority banking with 2 banks, and the reason why I got priority banking with those 2 banks is to be able to get.
What's
access.
priority banking, by the way? I mean, in case people don't know what you're
It's
talking
For people that have
basically
money.
you
so
pay.
they give you all this lounge access.
You
and
pay a
UT as
little
well. They give you
extra, so when
whiskey.
you just come in, you show your card, they take it someplace, you're able to do your transaction quickly.
Big boy.
The only reason,
The rest of us were in ATM.
He's so worried.
the only reason why I pay for priority banking is because of those queues. I went to the bank last week and I was trying to do something, right? I can't remember what it was. And I was trying to, I was going straight to the priority desk, but I looked around the banking hall. It's empty, right? The banks these days are filled with people making complaints, not people trying to do banking transactions. as against what it was maybe 7-8 years ago. So the general challenge is that the Nigerian population, the large crowd that were in the banking halls, have shifted to the POS guys. That is where the business is. Now, for the banks themselves, ATMs have now become a nuisance. As in, that's where I see it. Have become a nuisance. So if I'm going to keep doing this thing, make it profitable for me to keep it. Right?
But it's a service. Like, I don't know. So, okay, so if you can't provide ATMs, if you say, okay.
So are you
ATMs
saying we
are
should shut it down?
No,
We
no,
can't?
No, that's not what
Me,
I'm saying.
I am spoiled. I grew up in the UK where I never paid any money to use it. Yeah.
Oh yeah. That's
Yeah,
again, it's
yeah,
not
yeah.
banking
It's
fees.
here.
It's
But again, we're
It's a
not.
shock
So
of
we
bank
are
fees.
not the US.
Exactly.
So,
Let's hear it all because I think.
No, but it's the same thing.
So
same
you
thing.
think banks are charging too much?
They're 100%. Like, I don't understand ATM.
no.
They are not too. Some of
So
us are
let-
shareholders.
so guys, let's bring it back. Two things that are critical to the maintenance of any ATM. Maybe you could say three.
Nah, but I don't
but
understand
two
bank fees
major
too.
things that are critical to any ATM maintenance: power. So it must have 24/7 power and have a backup power system.
I mean,
So-
isn't that what solar does?
This is expensive to put into an ATM to service people
I beg.
who do not pay.
okay. So
Those-
just
those
so what
of
is
us-
this? Then close down.
those-
This
those
second,
of us who
just
are
not like
shareholders
5p and
in
ATM
banks.
will work.
So this is the alternative. Close down the ATM, and
okay.
that will not happen. So the thing is, if you must use
Okay,
the
after
ATM,
5 o'clock, the ATM price goes up.
No,
ATM
nah,
cost, the
it's
withdrawal
not
cost
possible.
Listen,
goes up.
all I want to say,
If
those
you
of
must
us
use
who are
ATM.
shareholders in banks should tell our banks to do bank work by lending to businesses and give us free ATMs.
No. See,
Do your bank business.
ATMs
Don't make money from fees.
Let's
Should we
be
go
real.
through bank balances,
No,
bank
no,
income
no.
statements and see how much fees
let's
they're
not
making?
let's not try and
versus
let's not try and
actually doing
reinvent.
bank
Let's not try and
business,
reinvent.
I'm those of us who are shareholders in banks.
I'm a shareholder of bank.
Let's not try.
That's what
Let's not try and
ATM should
reinvent.
be
Is it our fault
ATM.
that risk-free rate is 25%?
ATM should be free.
Is
So-
it the bank's
so-
fault?
so-
Banking business. What a bank
So
there
guys,
for?
I
It costs
realize
money to run. I'm on Tunji's side. It costs money to run ATM.
I'm speaking to the elite here.
No, I'm on Tunji's side. It costs money.
I am not elite. Oh.
Let me
this
say-
point,
let
it
me
costs
say this-
money to run
Let me say this
ATM.
specifically. The ATM two costs. One is the power. The second is the cash. So the maintenance of the cash. Now, what happens to a lot of ATMs is the ATM is packed with cash, and you've seen that the ATMs now have had to restrict cash payouts
Draws, yeah.
to 5,000. And the simple reason is that the POS guys just go to the ATMs and empty it. They just keep withdrawing to their limits. They have 4 or 5 cards till they've drawn out the ATM. So you that are supposed to, use it for your customers never really get a benefit from it. It is now the access point for somebody else to go and make money, which is of course good for multiplier factors for the economy. But for the bank, in terms of its own balance and just operations and ensuring efficiency, it's not profitable. But the CBN has said you must keep ATMs. So, Oga, if we will keep this thing,
Yeah, let's charge a fee for it. Maybe.
All right,
I agree with you. I agree with you.
Okay, let's move on. Last topic for today. We're really out of time, but last topic for today. I really want to touch on this topic before we go because it's also buzzing.
Okay.
And that is the war, the fuel price war between NNPC and
Now, this is a
Dangote.
Samson topic. Because
How is that
That's
my topic?
so-
It tells you
Why
that
is it
research took 2 cars to one to NNPC, one to MRS.
It's not like you're reading now. Come on,
No.
you're seeing that happen.
so
right?
I saw that.
I mean, like, is this
That's right,
a
the
race?
research paper,
Is this
really.
a race to the bottom? Because I read somewhere, somebody was saying, look, don't be deceived about this war that is happening. At some point, the reason why this war is happening is because the reason why prices are going down is because of the war. By the time they settle, we're going to see an oligopoly, and then prices will go up, and we're probably going to be at that 1,000 levels. I mean,
Lies.
is there anything here that...
So 2 things. One, the prices are going down because Dangote has never been that generous guy. We know. The prices are going down because it can go down. And he's also trying to make a point.
No,
So-
but the prices are lower than landing cost.
Yeah,
No,
so
but I've heard the prices should be between 750 and 900.
landing cost
No,
from
no,
where?
no.
Is it not?
No,
it
if you are- if you
has
are-
land.
if you are
It is in
doing-
Nigeria. It never left. So
No, but that so I don't know what Dangote is solving for.
Yeah.
Right. I struggle with this whole idea of building a 650 barrels per day single train refinery and having to sell crude the way he's selling the crude. I don't know what
Is
his
he selling
issue
crude or is he
What
selling
what
selling
is
refined
what
products?
is
products.
what is
Okay.
long term game? What is
Yeah,
long-term
because
game is that?
I would expect
He
that
wants to
for
export.
that capacity,
He wants to export.
number one, you export and then you have long-term off-takers that just basically
But
guarantees the take
he's
or
at
pay
he's
from
at the
you,
free
right?
trade zone. Is it ready to start taking his exports?
He's
But
exporting already, but I mean,
but-
but you still, but something.
No, I know he's exported
Won't you
AGO.
need the local market? As
No,
much
I'm not
as
saying
you
he
wanna
doesn't
export?
need
No.
the local
So yeah, but I think the thing is that he's obviously looking at the offshore market. He's going outside, but right now it is the market that is available. While I'm still fixing outside, he's already exporting AGO. Petrol would also follow, but petrol isn't in lower.
So my challenge is this, right? If I don't mind him having a monopoly in the local market, he's invested the capital.
Yeah.
If he's able to get the pricing right, then by all means he should carry the market. I even applaud it because a lot of people didn't do that, and so he should be rewarded for that, right? I don't know, number one, if he has the capacity to provide adequate supply to the whole country, right? So that's one, and then
He does though.
it doesn't.
By NNPC's daily consumption of
No. So
PMS.
so that's the question.
you believe that now?
I am not.
No, I don't believe
I
it,
am
but
not
let's assume it is right. Let's assume it is correct, right?
So no, he can based on the capacity of the
Uh-huh.
refinery. But I think there's something else. My suspicion, and don't quote, well, my suspicion is that there's working capital challenges in that business.
Yeah.
Right, that's my suspicion because if he runs a single train refinery at full capacity,
So he's trying
then
to
you should
get
have adequate
capital in.
supply. So like I think, and most of the people who trade with him, he basically require you to pay upfront before he gives you product. So it sounds more like somebody that is trying to solve a working
But
capital challenge.
that's always been the working capital strategy for solving working capital issues. Anyway.
Yeah, that's why. So I think it doesn't. I don't think he has the scale of the working capital required to keep that refinery at 100% uptime. Right. So I don't really know.
So he really needs to just keep this market going till he can get his.
yeah.
So is this a race to the bottom?
So I don't know
I don't
what
think
because
so.
ultimately, so with NNPC, right?
I love price wars.
Are they
But
bringing back subsidy?
So
I don't know.
No, they're not.
Let's
So
do
how are
that.
they able to give you the prices that they are giving you? So somebody's taking the loss, right?
at some point, yeah.
Yeah. So if
Obviously.
who's taking the loss? Would that be NNPC?
Looks like.
So if NNPC is taking the loss,
Or
are we
could be
going to
both
have
of them
subsidy
taking
back?
losses anyway.
No, I know that Dangote is likely taking, well, either a loss or a lower margin for sure. But Dangote is what he's trying to do, I think, is drive away the large importers because he's pricing below import parity prices. So if you're going to bring product into the country, he needs to make sure that you can sell. Especially in this
At least frustrate you enough to
especially in
go.
this south region that has a very dominant demand pool. I think once you add logistics costs to the north, it equalizes a little bit, right? So my sense is that he's like, okay, what is import parity? I price below import parity so that I can claim the whole local market for myself. And the big traders, local importers, he gets them out of the market, right? The challenge with that strategy is that this thing is a commodity. It's not like what he did in cement. The moment you get back to import parity or higher, these traders will come back.
Yeah.
So unless you can get Baba to do what former Baba did with cement to gate the country for you, then this strategy is a failing strategy because you would actually gain market share at lower price. But the moment you try to recover that margin, these traders will come back. Unless you are betting that you
So
can
where do you
give-
see all this going to? I mean, Nigerians are watching and are saying, look, is it likely we'll probably see sub 800?
It depends on what
prices.
oil.
Or
For me, it
crude
depends on what oil does and depends what the currency does. Those two inputs. I don't think Aliko Dangote can sustain significant losses for a long period of time. Remember, this is a leverage.
Nobody
asset.
knows his average cost at the moment, though. So
We don't know how much he's bringing product, but at the end of the day, I know what his input cost is. He's buying crude at market price.
exactly.
Right. So
crude prices are falling.
and then on top of that, I know he's
Exchange rate
chopping
is trending.
depreciation on depreciating 20 billion worth of assets.
Well, that's not cash anyway.
Right.
So
I know, but then I know that he also has Standard Chartered and their friends that he needs to pay interest to. So I can mentally work out what I think is
staying power
breaking, what his staying power
Yeah,
is,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So,
I hear you.
so I don't think he can. I mean, this guy is the richest man in Africa and probably has access to the smartest advisors that he can pay for. So there must be method to the madness, right? The problem is that for me, it's just not crystal clear what that madness
But
is.
I do think that what has happened is the comms department of his team have seen it as a good opportunity to sell the brand up. I don't think it is as.
Honestly, if I was him, I would fire those people.
I don't think it's as
Really?
important.
They are selling PMS like this guy is selling tomatoes. Oh, today this is the price. Oh, yeah, congratulations, my benevolence to you. Go to the market and buy.
Isn't that the kind of market we're in?
No.
I mean, like Nigerians love it.
But
So I don't understand.
the truth is that
Nigerians love it.
truth is that you can be a hero today. Do not forget that these factors are not completely out of your control, but they could flip tomorrow.
Anyway, guys, we gotta go.
If oil price goes up or currency
You
weaken
get-
and petrol is at 1.2, then you will not come out and say,
What do you come back and do?
Until then.
The last
Guys,
one
we
is
gotta
he said, go and enjoy the benevolence of Aliko.
We gotta go. Guys, this has been Drinks and Mics, but of course we won't close without buy, sell, or hold. So we're gonna do this pretty quickly because time, has essentially gone.
And
I know a lot of people want-
TB auction is out.
Is it
And I'm live, so I need to-
Is it low? Is it low?
It's 17.82.
Oh my
So-
god!
But like, so we need to.
Anyway, buy, sell, or hold.
right now.
Buy, sell, or hold, guys. Of course, I'd like to start from my right, Tunji. Buy, sell, or hold. Trump trade wars net positive for Africa. Buy, sell, or hold. Just one answer.
Hold.
Hold. Buy, sell, or hold, Arnold. Trump trade wars net positive for Africa.
I know you don't like me talking around this.
Yeah, I just
Hold.
we don't even have time.
Hold. No, we actually don't have time. Yeah,
Buy,
hold.
sell, or hold.
Hold. Because we okay, hold.
You had all the time to explain already. Samson, buy, sell, or hold. This is deep thought, man. This is
I'm in between hold and sell.
that's a hold, though.
Yeah,
It's
it's
a hold,
a
it's a
hold.
hold.
It's a hold.
Buy, sell, or hold crypto assets.
Buy.
Why?
I'm so.
We're buying. Like, you're always
Not
buying.
yet. Not yet.
Hold for you.
Yeah, not yet.
But I told you
I
I was
went from
going.
a sell to a hold.
I told you I was going to fall to 70 something,
Hold
and
on,
it did,
hold on,
right?
hold on.
Back to 9 something now.
Hot
Buy,
take.
sell, or hold. Hot take that went cold. After a week.
But it did, though.
After a week.
Yeah.
Buy, sell, or hold for you.
I'm always selling crypto.
I
Buy for me,
understand.
though. Buy for me. All right. So buy, sell, or hold MTN.
Hold this sell. Hold
Nah, you
this.
can't sell MTN now.
Hold
What do you
this.
mean by Airtel?
No.
Even the producer is saying, buy, sell, or hold.
MTN's a buy.
Oh,
buy
buy.
with patience.
Buy
It's a patient game.
Why?
You need to have that stock in your book.
Oh, to do what
I
exactly?
think Arnold is just
decoration?
very long.
I'm going to
MTN.
show Arnold Pepper in the
I
market.
bet you Sansido. You're lucky I have TV auction on my brain. If not, I'll come for you.
Buy, sell, or hold.
I think
Buy.
it's a
Buy. It's a what?
I
Buy.
think it's a buy.
Buy. All right, buy for me as well. I mean, I have MTN in my portfolio. Buy, sell, or hold Nestle.
Oh, that's a
Buy.
now.
Buy.
Buy.
Yeah,
Buy for you.
Buy.
Buy as well.
Yeah,
Yeah,
buy.
buy for me too. I mean, even though I don't like the price at the moment. 'Cause I don't know
Yeah,
whether you guys
yeah,
see the
bro.
price.
What do you mean? Think
Buy.
it should be cheaper?
Where is it?
Yeah, it gotta
Where
go
is it?
down.
950?
It's almost 1K now. It's 9 something.
990.
Almost 1K. Not where I want. Buy, sell, or hold separate.
Buy.
For which one?
Seplat.
Are you guys looking at the price?
Price is a buy now.
No, it's the fundamentals of
No,
the business.
Seplat's a buy.
The
Are you
growth
looking
rate.
at price earnings for Seplat?
do that, man.
No. Go and do proper NAV model for that company.
Really? You think
Yeah.
any of you work for Seplat?
Yes. It's priced to NAV. It has to be. It has
Okay.
to be. Otherwise, you will undervalue all the assets they just acquired.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good point there though. I know your answer here, but I mean, I'll just ask for courtesy. Buy, sell, or hold. ATM prices are just too high.
ATM.
Yeah, ATM cost of withdrawal. ATM are just too high.
Buy.
I was
So
saying,
you think it's too
they're
high, right?
No. So I
Oh.
thought I support the new prices.
So sell for you.
Yeah,
So
sell,
you think
so-
ATM prices are
It's fine. It's fine.
So sorry. So if you're a sell, you
buy
think the price
is the price is
High.
is too high.
yeah, sell. It's too high.
No,
It's actually free.
that's not my question.
Buy
Don't confuse
is
me. I said buy, sell, or hold.
Uh-huh.
ATM withdrawal prices are too high.
So what's the trade? I don't understand. So if I'm selling, it's too.
You agree with me? Buy. You do. You disagree
it's
with
too high.
me?
Sorry, buy.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So
buy.
you
I'm
say
sell. I'm
because
sell.
disagrees.
I'm sell.
Okay. So you think it should be higher?
I think it should be low.
He thinks the price.
I think so. I think it should be higher. Yeah, I think it should be higher.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, wow.
What do you think?
POS fees are higher.
Yeah.
People are paying.
Samson, for once, don't look at your book. Don't look at your investment in this bag.
What do you say? It's not high enough.
As
Samson said
the
it's not-
cover
he wants more revenue
as
for
the
doing
producer, as the
more revenue
cameraman
for doing
here.
nothing. But actually just fees.
You know, fees and commission have come
beg,
down.
I
as a
beg,
proportion.
I beg.
Leave your, just back down your capitalist
You
nature
understand?
somewhere.
So somebody should in the comment section. How much do you pay to withdraw from cash to get cash from POS terminals and compare it side by
I
side?
really don't like that comparison, but you know what?
No,
No problem.
that is the
problem.
fact. People
No
are paying
problem.
a lot more.
Last buy, sell, or hold.
Yeah.
Buy, sell, or hold.
Which what?
Dangote is winning this war, this price war with NNPC on the long
I don't
term.
even know why
Let
there's
me
a
finish my
war.
question.
I-
Wait now, buy, sell, or hold. Dangote
That's
is
his-
winning this price war with NNPC on the long term.
Sell.
You think they're going to lose it on the long
Oh,
term?
just against
On the
NNPC or
long
against
term.
the whole market?
Against NNPC.
I will win NNPC now.
Against NNPC.
No, but NNPC is the
You said
market.
sell, buy.
NNPC is the rest
No,
of the
they're
market.
independent.
Buy for you,
suppliers.
buy for you, buy for me as well.
Ah.
Anyway, guys, this has been one of the longest episodes of Drinks and Bikes, but I'm sure you all did understand why.
Very
A whole
fiery.
lot to chew on today, a whole lot. By the way, the votes are still on. Let us know what you think about the live session. We're gonna have a live session sometime this month.
It's very
God
important.
willing,
So would that
you
be in
guys
front
can
of an
participate.
audience or
No,
just
no. So we could do it. We could do it here. We could do it here, and it'll be live, and we'll have a monitor also, so that we could get comments in, and basically respond to the comments.
We're not
real
sure, to be
time.
honest.
Or we
could
can do it in front of an
it could be an
audience. That would be
I
nice
think
to
I'm
do
like
in
an
front of an
audience.
audience.
I've already
Yeah.
spoken to someone to give us that audience
Capacity.
space. Yes,
Yeah.
Might not have a lot of people, but some of our very core listeners will probably be invited as well.
Yeah.
Always going to be the same setting with drinks and all that in there.
So you want to be good on your comments in the comment section today?
Please don't be good. Just say it as it is.
Say it as it
Tunji
is.
in the
will
comment
be the
section.
person picking.
By the way, Tunji
all
and I-
those you guys that are beefing me from 2014.
Tunji and I still have a bet, by the way. So is it going to be 20,000 views today? Is it going to be 30,000
Yeah.
views?
So I believe we've crossed. So 30,000 views, guys. Don't
We still
let
need
me
your
down.
feedback, by the way. Let us know if there's anything you want us to improve on Drinks and Mics. Drinks today, courtesy of Tunja and Rose, and of course the guys at Lead Drop who helped us with this interesting drink. I saw some of you were kind of like avoiding.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was
Burrito with
heavy.
teeth?
It was.
I think you avoid.
before you deviate from market.
By the way, we drink responsibly and Drinks and Bikes, so please drink responsibly.
Yeah,
That is it for today. Until we'll do this again next
Yes,
week.
sir.
Do have a profitable week ahead. Goodbye, everyone. Cheers, guys. Cheers.
Cheers.